Folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to nature in this gorgeous park where I am. It's time for another video, and of course I kind of seem to like a bit the idea of coming into nature now that is kind of spring, but here in the desert, well, demi-desert area, it's very rarely extremely cold, so that you may not get out because the ground becomes so frosty that you might actually chill your feet. Welcome back in nature and welcome back to another YouTube channel video that I'm gonna post, this time on a topic that I thought about for kind of 2 days, but didn't make any plan, just as usual, because I want to come out with whatever happens to come out. And the topic I chose for today is the idea of immortality. Many people have throughout the time been thinking about this topic, and it's all mainly because of a wish to bypass the so-called painful aspect of parting with your physical body. Now, parting the physical body is something that will always happen. Okay, so here I am in nature with, well, brought my lunch and again rooting rooting myself on the ground. Everything is fine, everything is beautiful, the weather is so peaceful and tranquil. Yesterday it was a bit chilly, but today is kind of the best winter day ever. There are some beautiful children back in there, and they're goofing around, so I don't mind watching them from time to time. Since I'm not that photogenetic, as I call it, I don't like by family tradition, it's not a passion to simply watch cameras and such. So, these being said, the topic of immortality has stemmed from feeling of uselessness, a feeling of being helpless in the face of the inevitable perishing of the physical body, and that also coupled with a lot of hideous thought forms that people have created over time, ideas around judgments and all sorts of horrible things that can happen to someone after they perish. Okay, so passing away has become more and more of concern to many things, and many people have tried all sorts of things. And honestly, I was in the 6th grade when I came up with an idea that can in a way preserve, or let's say can ensure a certain sense of immortality, but the point is one still ditches the body. Now, back then I was thinking for the first time about a concept which later on I developed into the mind virus, an idea that I didn't read about anything, it just popped into my mind, and in the 9th grade and the 10th grade I developed on this quite a lot. I even wrote a school composition for the philosophy classroom, and yeah, I kind of was the alien of the classroom. So yeah, I was kind of the one who was always thinking beyond what many people would think about. Now, the point about this is very late, like 3 years ago, I came across a book which was actually called The Meme, or the virus of the mind, and basically everything that I was thinking about and even wrote about, well, not published, but wrote about just as personal notes and such, I kind of found out in that book, and I was like, okay, like it's like I'm reading myself now. So based on the principle of this, in the 6th grade I kind of had a feeling that thoughts are not something that just float around. Thoughts are life forms, and they can actually be shape-shifted, and basically one does something that society does to people, and it's called finessing, or adjusting or adapting others to serve your own needs. Now, this is usually an aspect of manipulation, but the point was I could turn thoughts into what I could call, back in the times, ideas like fleets. Okay, imagine like sci-fi fleets of thoughts that you could simply launch at others and conquer their minds. Now, why would someone do this? Well, let's say that this can ensure a certain sense of immortality. If you can conquer someone's mind, you can plant yourself in there, and well, you can simply grow. Now the point is, does that make a different you? Well, considering there is an aspect of, transference, which I call it so, I mean, it's not necessarily too occult, considering that if you stay too much around certain people, especially since a very useful age, you will start acting like those, because there is a lot of ancestral karma, okay, memories from your ancestors that will manifest, and they will keep manifesting within you. And the more unconscious a person is, the more they are open to such things, so therefore the easier they are to influence. That is why astrology is also best for people who are unconscious, because through their unconsciousness they are the most open for that. Ignorance and unconsciousness are just perfect synonyms, and the point about this is very simple. Okay, in idea of in the sense of unconsciousness, okay, and ignorance, the point is, ignorance means to simply accept literally everything without any sense of discernment. That is why people end up as being a mess, because they accept everyone else's pains, misfortunes, and whatever other things. So that kind of ends up pretty bad for them. Basically, it's like becoming a black hole. Nothing escapes your grasp, but unfortunately you're more like becoming you know a waste bin instead of just a black hole, because black hole simply purifies stuff, a bin simply collects them. So that's why there is a quite cruel concept called the trash people, or the freeloaders, those who just come to you, they unload their shit upon you, and then they just leave, because gathering shit is basically what many people are convinced they should do. And they wouldn't change that, because, well, once someone is convinced that there is nothing beyond that, comfort zone kicks in, and it's hard to pull yourself out of a said comfort zone. So immortality, as of myself, I portrayed it as conquering others and settling yourself in their own minds, as well as transferring yourself in there, so that you preserve the original persona instead of just replicating your persona and creating more copies of yourself. So with this, the point is, the physical body will still be shed. That's the point, but at least the persona gets to move further. Now, another point, especially nowadays, is what I call the sci-fi corruption, okay? Sci-fi movies have kind of turned people into believers of the idea that machines, for example, are invulnerable. And I've made a video about this, and machines aren't necessarily immortal, okay, because they are a sort of life form as well, and when life leaves the body, it doesn't matter what that body type is, it still leaves a carcass behind. Many people would imagine that if you embrace the machine, if you embrace a mechanical body, you don't age and such, but pieces of metal also age. They might age slightly slower, but imagine that you would suddenly live 1,000 years. Now, if you are to live 1,000 years, the question that comes is very simple. Think about all the circus and all the things that go on in your own mind, okay? That's why so many people call it the monkey mind, right? Now, taking all these into account, it's quite funny, because imagine that you have to cope with other people's pains for, I don't know, no longer for 40, 60, 80 years that one usually lives, but how about 1,000 years, okay? Imagine how much negativity and karma one can store through all this negativity that one puts inside of them, and people kind of don't know that all the thoughts that they put out, they kind of end up influencing you more or less. And I'm seeing this more and more, and it's kind of interesting to see that whatever you think kind of has a very great influence upon you. It's just the more you think of something, the more it will have you tend towards those. And one thing not to do is to enlist the aid of your intellect against you. Now, what is the intellect? The intellect is basically a very strong part of yourself, whose purpose is to support whatever you are thinking about and believing. Again, belief is something that does not require proof. It's just accepting certain ideas. You have an illusion that it clicks with you, but, well, nothing else than that. So the point about such things is, again, immortality is one such thing. No one has any idea to ensure this. Okay, now the big question would come, okay, so one can or may try to, ensure their immortality by conquering others and learning how to control and manipulate thoughts. One can do this by any other means. Is there an occult way to ensure immortality? Well, there may be actually such ways. The point is, life itself is kind of immortality, because life will go from one womb to another, will go from one body to another. So technically there is an aspect of immortality. It's just that at the same time it comes with a point that it's relinquishing of all unwanted feels. Okay, when the body is simply disposed, okay, when the spirit, let's say, leaves, the point about this is karma is the only thing you take with you. Nothing else belongs to you, because on this planet you don't take anything with you if you die, right? You don't take any riches, you don't take uh, any material thing with you. Your karma is the only thing that you take with you. So, point we said, it's not a bad thing to be necessarily rich or to live a lavish life, but not forgetting one's mortality is kind of one of the wiser things to take into account. So the point is, can immortality be established? Yes, from several sources, and of course I haven't experienced this, but in the end, life itself, yes, it is, a cycle that can only be broken by becoming enlightened and, well, breaking each and every karmic cycle that you have acquired throughout your multiple incarnations. Now, from an occult standpoint, there can be ways, of course, because occult means hidden, and of course it is hidden not because necessarily, there's a bad connotation about this. It's just because occult is used by people with certain capabilities, okay? And there are ways in which one can guide the spirits, most likely, into another chosen body, and, well, through painful rituals or through more pure ones, that body can be instilled with that life form. So basically, if someone would theoretically die, they come back in another body, and, well, through certain occult practices they can be enlightened in time, so that they gain access back to the memories that they left behind. So the point about immortality is that basically, to a certain extent, we are immortal, okay? Because every thought that you have, that you make, every action, every gesture, everything that you learn, okay, it is placed inside of you, okay? Not in this physical body, but in your karma, in your evolutionary karma. The reason why children find it somewhat easier now to walk, for example, is because there have been so many ancestors before them. The reason why so many people learn to speak faster now is because, again, there is a huge amount of genetical, evolutionary process that took place, and everyone that does a certain thing, of course they will improve and they will make the process faster and better for the incoming generations. So basically, we have all the tendencies and thought forms, misaccomplishments, happinesses, and all the such of our ancestors within us, and we just don't kind of know how they influence us. So to a certain extent, our ancestors are living again through us as well, even if they might have their own life, or simply they may no longer come on this world. The point is, their habits and everything that was peculiar to them is transmitted from one to another. Now, you don't necessarily need to give birth to a child to simply do this. They still exist there in the Akashic records, and that's why nowadays there is so much filth that most likely is said to be cleansed. Now, the point is, many people simply don't understand one thing. This cleansing is not necessarily something that you dissipate them or something like that, okay? It's still going to exist in there. It's just that you're going to make peace with those, more or less, because the reason why you're suffering is you're looking back in time, and, well, you've created some time in the past, you've created some circus event, as I call it, and this event is like you don't like something and you start creating and putting more emotion into it and reacting more and more into it, so it becomes worse and worse, and, well, suffering comes because you're not doing a good thing through this. But again, many people enjoy it because, well, it's the comfort zone and it's the only thing they might know, and they believe it's nothing else that can be done. So is this suffering necessarily good? Well, to some people it might take several lifetimes to figure out. Again, it's important that each and every one achieves their own things. And regarding immortality, because I've been aiming more towards a generalized video rather than specifically immortality, um, the point about immortality is that, again, there are several ways that one becomes immortal. Okay, now the question is, and the big problem is, that many people want this to be like fully physical. Okay, they just want to preserve their own physical body, but at the same time they don't like who they are, and if they look in the mirror, it's kind of funny that they don't like what they see. So the question that would pop in my mind is, why would you want to live eternally in the body that you don't even like? Right? Like, first of all, realize your own mortality, because irrespective of how much you fuss about your body or not, you're still gonna shed it sooner or later. But at the same time, your body is gonna be the only friend that is gonna be staying by you until you finally part ways. Okay, people come and people go in one's life. It's just that. So all these traumas that are going on is just because people have created this powerful sense of, I am this body, and I must be entitled to preserving this body forever. You can see this in ancestral patterns, because we're in the present doing nothing else than what our ancestors have been doing. We still want a house, we still want we probably may no longer want a cart, but we may want a car instead. And as things progress, we may want the newer and newer gadgets and stuff that appear. It's all that we feel this entitlement, and we're also playing this psychiatry, this circus that, a piece of paper proves that you own a certain thing. Well, to many people, they will probably enjoy remaining silly, but nothing in this world will ever prove that we have something, because everything that you've been having is just a circus. Okay, society can simply come to you and say, hey, you know what, we're just gonna take this from you, you don't own your house. And just look nowadays in the Davos agenda, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, think about this, you haven't owned anything anyways, because the only thing that you own is basically this physical body, which you don't even own, because it belongs to the planet. That is why you will return it sooner or later, irrespective of the fact that you like it or not. However, think about this, that the planet kind of won't ask any interest, okay, on the physical body that it gives. Okay, you just earn the physical body, and well, it's nothing else than a constant accumulation of your thoughts, emotions, and everything that you've been taking from the exterior, including the food and the such, because well, basically you're just a pile of memories. Okay, that's a pile of information, because memory is basically information, and it becomes stronger and stronger the more the more it stacks, to say, like in video games. So immortality stems from this point that people are obsessed with this idea, okay, with this identification with the body, and they believe that the body is theirs, and the house that they have, they want to be theirs. And you can see that throughout history it's always been this. Okay, no one wants to give away anything, and they're all attached so strongly to certain things, because first of all, they haven't been represented in their own life. No one ever told them that they have any value, so they will try to seek value in literally anything that can distract their their wearied minds. Okay, because the mind will become wearier and wearier. Okay, it will become more and more tired the more you simply misuse it. Okay, because that's basically the premise of any disease. You misuse the body, well, you suffer the consequences. So is immortality something possible? Well, why not? It can be ensured through a certain aspect of immortality, through let's say certain bypassing, I can say. I don't know how to call it, but there may be occult practices that can do that. But at the same time, saying that you're transferring all your knowledge and all your pains as well as your misfortunes, and you have to be really narcissistic to simply demand something like that. And well, one may say that the occults and the such will always reincarnate in such ways, because well, they want to dominate the world and they can't take their mind off of that. Truth, or imagination, well, I'm not gonna say anything about this, because everyone is doing their own thing. Everything you need to know can also be found in certain movies, because many movies, ever since I was young, I would feel that certain movies would be more like documentaries. Like, I would watch Stargate rather as a documentary, and I think it's kind of the only movie that I did, I kind of imagined, that there were actually some people here, moving to other planets and such, because even back then in the 5th and 6th age, I couldn't accept the fact that we would be alone. Okay, how narcissistic would one have to be to believe that in these billions of galaxies that there are, with billions of stars in each, there's really no other life form, okay? And that God and everything that created this actually has, a physical shape that looks specifically like us, okay? Like, why can't creation simply have no shape, okay? Because definitely if it is beyond matter, well, most likely it doesn't even have any shape, okay? But many people suffer from this idea that, they understand the world through the premise of their own mind, and as thousands of years of people have been saying, the mind is represented by the three lower chakras of the physical body, which are only represented by, survival of the physical, okay, survival of the self, survival in a social standpoint, and survival of the self, okay, the mind. And if people believe that the 114 chakras, that life manifests itself through this human body that we have, if people think that they can understand those 114 chakras through only three, well, they're gravely mistaken, okay? And at the same time, why do you think it's called understanding, okay? You're not standing on the point, okay? You are just standing close to the point. You haven't realized a certain thing. It's just making a certain logical sense into your mind, which again, it's kind of problematic, or can be problematic, because to each and every individual it can make a different logical sense, okay? So all this being said, okay, immortality is not something that people should bother with, okay, because everything that you do now will also influence your your followers, the people that will come after you, be it that you have children or not, okay? So the point is, you'd be better and wiser if you actually start thinking, what is it that you're actually leaving after you, instead of chasing silly aspects, okay, like immortality and the such, because whatever you want beyond this physical, beyond this that we naturally have, it always comes with a certain cost. The question whether you can handle that cost is, well, are you willing to simply sell, or willingly give control of who or whatever you are for certain things that most likely may not even service you? But again, there are many topics that people have to take into account. There are many things that people have to simply stop avoiding, because everything that you would be interested in is simply found within you. Every action, everything has a repercussion. So wanting things beyond yourself, beyond the physical, beyond, well, any topic, idea, anything that is basically yourself, okay, is kind of a bit problematic already, because you're not doing that out of curiosity, okay? You're only doing that out of a will or a wish to simply, distract yourself from what you may consider the hideousness of the world. But again, the world is not hideous, it's just your perception of it, and your perception of something is wholly, well, entirely, let's say entirely shaped by uh, all the things that we have acquired, basically your karma, okay? All the thoughts, all the emotions, because you have to understand that you're nothing else than a video camera in a video game, okay? The player that you see you play as, okay, in a video game is nothing else than a camera. It has no emotion, it has no thoughts, okay? It just receives information, okay? So it doesn't have any meaning, okay? All that information, all that you're seeing is just, you know images, okay? And all you're hearing is just sounds. The meaning is something that you attach, and that's kind of it, okay? That's one of the deepest aspects that one should realize, not necessarily, just know, okay? Because it may sound logical, but if you don't realize that, well, it's gonna sound, or it's gonna feel that life is kind of a disappointment, because when you live too much stuck into the mind, you're only living in survival, because that's what the mind is made for. And when you live in survival, the point is, you won't live life at a complexity or at a certain level that would be enough to make your life better, because when you only live in survival, you will always feel that there is something that is lacking, because you're not experiencing life at a vibrancy that actually makes you feel alive. You are just feeling that you're just floating there, and life is just like a river passing by, and you are just not in the river, okay? You're just by the river, okay? That's how many people choose to live life, and it doesn't have to be your way also. Okay, so all this being said, hopefully you like this video, hopefully you like the type of content that I'm creating. Feel free to like and subscribe, and well, until next time, take care. uh, well, I'm wishing you all the good, have an awesome life, stay awesome, live bright. Ferenc on board, signing out.